Welcome. This is the Public Works Podcast. My name is Joseph Blackman. Today, we got a real treat for you. Her name is Britney Ward. She is the transportation engineer for the city of Sandy in beautiful Utah. Britney, say what's up to everybody.
Hi, guys.
So, you're a transportation engineer. Let's get into it. I mean, was young Britney, was she looking at cars and trying to figure out roundabouts and, and four-leaf clover on and off ramps? Like, so what got you into being a transportation engineer?
So I first started out in my education, not necessarily looking at transportation engineering, but looking at engineering in general. I've always enjoyed math and music, so got diploma of merit for that in high school, and then after that I went straight to college and kept continuing taking classes I liked, and I just ended up in civil engineering, and I've been a little bit lucky to work in all the different disciplines of civil engineering throughout my career, and transportation is just what stuck.
So you said math and music. What instrument?
I play the violin, the piano, the organ. I did a little bit of drumline. So
Oh
that
shoot.
was the
So
fun part of high school.
you're like legit. I thought you were just gonna say, "Oh, I dabbled in piano." But you play violin, love it. All right, and so you said you kind of studied all different facets of engineering, and then you kind of landed in transportation engineering. What was I guess, the affinity or attraction to the transportation side that keeps you in it today?
Yeah, well, I didn't study all different types of engineering. I did do just civil engineering, but civil engineering has 5 different disciplines in it. So you have your structures, such as your bridges and dams. There's transportation, there's geotechnical, which is all the soils. There's water resources, which is where we get our drinking water from and our wells. And then environmental, which is more of your wastewater treatment. Um, I have worked in all those disciplines. So I've designed structures before, dams, large sign structures. I worked in a soils lab as an internship for a while. That was quite enjoyable. And I almost did do geotechnical engineering as well. And I've helped with design pipelines for pressurized irrigation for farming communities and dams in that aspect as well. So anyway, so I've done transportation. What got me first into it was working for a firm doing some signal timing. I got into the traffic signal boxes, modified those settings, studied it, ran some analysis, some modeling software on the computer, and that just stuck. So I stuck with it.
So would you, like, let's say you're giving advice to somebody coming out of high school and they say, "Hey, Brittany, I want to get into engineering, into civil engineering." Would you advise that they kind of go through all those different departments under civil engineering, or should they just focus on one and just triple down on one of them?
Yeah, so there's a number of people that I try and work with and try and inspire. I've gone into schools and spoken to them before. There are some high school students where I, show them fun things around the neighborhood, like, look, do you understand that there's pipes under the road or in the walls of your house, and things like that. And so actually just last night I met with a young woman who was going up to the University of Utah for a field trip day with her school, and there was about 30 different classes she could choose from. And so we went through those list of classes together, and I explained to her which each of those were, and which ones she could choose. And then she was able to make a better selection based on what her interests were. So when you go to get an engineering degree, you are required to take classes in all of those disciplines. And so we get a little bit of experience from all of them to begin with. And then after that, after you get your bachelor's degree, it's really up to you on whether you want to continue to go on to get a master's degree or whether you want to get work experience. So not everybody gets to have work experience in all of those disciplines. And some people just know exactly what they want to do. And so I think either course is an excellent way to go. Just go after it. Just go after what you need and what you want. And, for me who didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, getting that work experience in all of those disciplines was quite helpful in making my decision.
I bet. I bet. Explain what a normal Wednesday is like for Brittany. Like, what are you doing from the time you get to the office to before lunch, after lunch, and then before you leave? What are you doing all day?
Sure. So my job description includes over the traffic signals in Sandy. We have about 80, 84, 85 signals in our city. Half of those we own and maintain. The other half are UDOTs. There are state roads that go through our city, and every signal on the state road they own. So I just oversee them, make sure they're functioning. I do traffic studies to see if new signals are needed. I manage contracts with consultants that'll help us do our signal retiming. And then we contract with a local group here that does the maintenance of it. So if something's broken, I just call them up and say, hey, come fix this for us. The other thing I manage is the striping on the roadways. So the line striping, the pavement messages, crosswalks, all of those. I'm also over all of the signs in Sandy, street name signs, stop signs, school routes, whatever. And then also I work pretty closely with developers. So when someone wants to do development in Sandy, whether that's building a single family hotel or a single family home or up to a hotel or a drive-through business, I review every single plan set that comes into our city from a transportation perspective through there. And then the other thing that actually usually keeps me busy most of my time is emails, emails with developers or residents or just between employees here. So it's a pretty busy job. So
I mean, you just said a lot there. So from traffic signals, right? You said 85, to the signs in the road, the signs out next to the road, and then you said like you're reviewing plans if somebody wants to build anything.
yep.
Did you like I'm sure when you went out for the job, well your title says transportation engineer.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like you do a lot more than that, even though it's under the transportation engineer auspices. How do you juggle all of these? Like, do you have a specific day where you just do all your traffic light monitoring? And you pick Tuesday for your line marking, and like, how do you separate it all and keep the plate spinning? I guess.
So we have our own in-house sign shop, which is unique in this area. Most cities outsource their work for signs and road striping. So I manage our own in-house sign shop. And so we make all of our own signs and do all of our street striping and pavement messages. And so they're a big support to Sandy. We have 100,000 residents in our city. So we are the sixth biggest jurisdiction in the state. And so they really do a great job and handle all the striping and signs and the day-to-day goings of there. But if there's like special requests or signs or parking issues, or if I'm adding bike lanes, those are instructions that I would give to our sign shop to make sure that happens. Development review. We meet every Monday, all departments in the city, to go over the development plans and just give our comments and feedback to the developers. And then we review those plans throughout the week that get submitted. Traffic signals. So I don't go out there and do the repairs on the traffic signals myself. I don't get into the traffic cabinets and modify the signal timing. I did that at a previous job, which is what gave me my work experience and my, and the ability to be able to manage that better here at Sandy. So we do contract with the county. And so whenever I have a maintenance need for the signals, I call the county and have them take care of that. So it's a lot of managing work. I don't do all of it myself, and for sure. I just, help direct it.
It still sounds like a lot. Let's say you're mentoring your younger self again, or a younger person, and they say, "Hey, Brittany, what's one skill set I need to pick up to help me be successful at everything that you do?" What would that one skill set be?
So I rely on my past experience quite a bit as far as what I manage now. So I'm very grateful I was able to do several signal retiming projects for Utah Department of Transportation. I'm grateful I was able to get in the cabinets and understand all of the parts of it and how to operate them. we're very unified as far as traffic goes here in the state of Utah. In the Salt Lake area, we have quarterly meetings up at the Traffic Operations Center. UDOT is one of the leading transportation governments or state governments in the nation, and they've taught a lot of other states traffic things and developing technologies. And so as local jurisdictions, we try and unify with them as well, because a typical driver isn't going to know what city exactly they're in. They're just going to want the same traffic experience everywhere. It's frustrating. It would be frustrating to have to change that. And so we really try to work hard and unify together.
Gotcha. All right, so let's talk adversity. I'm sure you've been at this for a while, so we need a story from you of something that went wrong under your watch, what you did to fix it, and then what lessons you learned from it to apply to your future career.
Yeah. So, well, the first point of advice before I say what went wrong is to always have representation and stay involved with what we do. We government employees are our best advocate when it comes to making sure things go right. If we're not keeping an eye on what's underneath our watch or what we're managing, and if there's not good communication, then there is easily room for errors. And so what we do at the city, I actually also act as a liaison between Sandy City and UDOT, the state of Utah, for projects. So when UDOT comes in and does projects in the city, I will go to those weekly construction meetings. I'll be involved with the design. I'll be involved with their bidding process. I'll review the plans and give comments and feedback on them. There's others in our office that help with that as well. So always involved on it because it affects our city. People don't know what's a state road and what's a city road. Usually they assume it's just a city road. And so I want to ensure that that's a good experience for drivers in Sandy as well, no matter whose road that they're on. So one time when we had a project come in through here, it was a large project, and new signal heads were installed on a freeway overpass. Those signal heads were installed at a height where the bridge that was built next to those signal heads ended up blocking the view of them. And so the driver experience was when you're approaching this bridge, you didn't know whether to stop, whether it was a red light or a green line. So you had to approach with caution.
Nice.
And so as soon as you saw the light, you'd have to have a really quick reaction on whether you were supposed to stop or go or not. And so I worked with UDOT. We had a couple of conversations back and forth several times, saying, hey, here's the driver experience. Here's what I'm experiencing. I agree with the residents. Something's not right here. And the contractor would come back and say, well, it meets national standards for stopping sight distance. There's nothing wrong with it. And then UDOT also went through there and saw, yeah, I understand where Sandy's coming from. This is not a safe situation. Let's dig further into this. And so they got into further national standards, dug further and further into them, and said, yeah, while it meets normal stopping sight distance requirements, it doesn't meet the requirements for signal sight distance. And because of that, they had the contractor go back and make the signal heads lower so that they could be seen easier. And we actually had to turn those signal heads onto their side so that all three colors could be seen from a reasonable distance.
Interesting. So is that why I see some signals on their side and some are like vertical?
You see those differences because there used to be two different standards with them. An old standard did give you the option to have them sideways, but the new standard is vertical now. But you can have sideways signals under specific options when they're needed and warranted. So, but generally the signal heads should be vertical.
Gotcha. You're probably so much fun to go on a road trip with because you're probably looking at signs and lights and markers and all that. Like, do you notice this stuff in your, I guess, just your daily, running about town?
I do, yes.
I figure that.
Yeah.
Britney said, hey, look at that stoplight. Look at that sign.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about how Britney keeps her sword sharp. you could just say, you know what, I know all the codes, I know what everything's supposed to look like, how it's supposed to function, but what keeps Brittany's fire lit to keep learning what's new, what's innovative out there, or what's working and what might not be working?
Sure. So as a professional engineer, we are licensed through the Department of Professional Licensing. And as part of that, we are required to get professional development hours. We have to get 30 hours every 2 years, and we're required to track that. And that's specifically so that we keep our minds sharp and that we continue to do well and perform well according to whatever national standard is or newest technologies or whatnot. And so that would be my first answer to your question, is that I make sure to get my professional development hours in. A lot of that is done through engineering conferences or public work conferences, which I think you're familiar with, of APWA.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And then I wanted to also share, just one second. Yeah, so we do that through those conferences. And then I also don't mind a good challenge sometimes if there is an issue or a traffic item that's going on. I'm always more than happy to do a traffic study to see what's warranted there. I mean, say I get a call from a citizen saying that the intersection is really, really busy. We need to do something different with it. And so I'll explore either adding a four-way stop there, or I'll see if a signal's warranted, or if maybe we even need to do a roundabout. So I rely pretty heavily on those national standards. There's a few of them. There's one for roadway design. That's the AASHTO standard. There's the MUTCD, which is your traffic signals, your striping, and your signs. Roadside design guide, which is everything on the roadside to make sure you're safe. If you go into a crash cushion, we have to make sure that crash cushion is going to protect, others around you, and you're not going to go, bouncing back and forth if you hit that. So it's always good, really good to know all of your standards and to explore them and keep on them and understanding them. So, yep, I always just stay familiar with those.
Totally, totally. And then what does it look like? Like, I always like to ask this question. If you could be the transportation engineer for any other city outside of the North America, not sure if you've done a lot of world travel, but where would you want to be a transportation engineer? And then also another question, what countries are getting it totally right that you wish America would kind of adopt, things that you might have seen overseas or in other countries?
I've actually haven't done much international travel. I've been to Mexico once, but that was just a very small beach location through a boat. So I'm actually going to redirect your question and compare it to other states in the nation, if that's okay.
Totally.
Awesome. So what I was referring to earlier, what I had mentioned earlier, was that UDOT is leading in the transportation industry across the United States. So I have been to several other states across the nation, and anyone who travels and drives through states does see a difference in the different types of transportation and how those standards are applied. So I think I've been very blessed by being here in Utah, and we were very good with our standards and how we use them and apply them. And so a lot of times when I go to other states or cities outside of Utah, there are definitely things I'd like to improve. There are some areas that focus more on walkability, and they put crosswalks, every single block, or they'll put one place in Washington I saw was a stop sign, like literally right in the middle of the pavement. And I just thought to myself, I wonder how many times they have to replace that stop sign because it gets hit so much, I went to Chicago earlier this year to see some family, and I was just blown away. They have Lower Wacker Road underneath all the big skyscrapers. They have trains literally like right above your head. That's a lot of steel. And so I'm like, it made me feel really small. I'm like, oh, I'm just a small town engineer compared to Chicago. But then other cities I go to, like Washington, where other family is, I'm like, oh, I could come here and do a lot of help, a lot of good. So yeah. Anyway, yeah, I do compare cities and different transportation and how people apply standards where I travel for
Yeah,
sure.
totally, totally. Let's say we ask somebody that knows you, but they don't work with you, and I asked them. I said, like what does Brittany do all day? What would they get totally wrong about that answer?
What would they get wrong about it? Hmm. I'm not sure. I don't run into that much as far as transportation goes. Um, I think a lot of people complain about transportation. There's a lot more complaints about it than not. I think maybe people don't realize how well we do at synchronizing the signals, and how well we watch transportation. I'll get a lot of people sometimes come in like really strong, complaining about something, um, which is great. I love when people call in and complain because my eyes and ears can't be everywhere all at once. So if they're always hitting a red light somewhere, then I appreciate them calling in and knowing about that so that I can go out there and fix it. Maybe the detection is broken, or maybe the synchronization of the signals is off. And so that's actually really helpful. So I like getting those calls. I like getting those complaints coming in. Um, and so one of the complaints that I get quite frequently is about traffic calming and speeding in their neighborhood. We have a traffic calming program here at Sandy. I did not implement it myself. It was here and in effect before I came. But when we get a call about people speeding in their neighborhood, I'll go out and I'll take and do a traffic study for 24 hours on a weekday. I have a radar device that I set up, and every time a vehicle drives past, I'm able to take a timestamp of when they drove past, what direction they're going, and how fast they're going. I can then download that data and then actually determine if there is a speeding issue on that roadway or not. And then for the roads that do have speeding issues, I can implement traffic calming measures such as bulb outs or shoulder stripes or driver feedback signs that tell drivers how fast they're going. But then if there's not really a speeding issue there, then I have that data to show to the person who called and said, and I can say, look, I understand you feel that way, but my data is showing that there's not a speeding issue. And traffic engineering, I mean, we treat traffic as a whole or as an average. We can't treat individual drivers. And so if there is somebody determined to speed, I can't stop them. That's through police enforcement. So my answer to your question ultimately would be what people get wrong is it's really difficult to estimate the speed of a vehicle. But for the most part, people do get it correct on what transportation is, because we all use it. We
Gotcha.
experience it every day.
Gotcha. What's like the most notorious or the most frequent text message email you get? And I'm talking from family, friends around the city, not, just regular community members.
Um, so probably about transportation technologies. I would have somebody ask me, hey, they just added green paint to this intersection. What does this mean? And which I would reply, oh, looks like the city's adding bike lanes. Or somebody would say, well, I live over here. There's these weird lights that they add to the intersection that flash white, a really quick white flash. What is that? And my answer would be, well, that's to help police enforcement with red light runners. So really it's just people trying to understand what's built out there, or what projects are happening in their area, in my area, my community. I don't live in Sandy, but I do have neighbors and friends asking me about projects and where we live.
I mean, it sounds fun because like you just gave the story. If somebody complains about somebody speeding down the street, you can actually go out and collect good data and say yay or nay, and you can impart change on that street in that instance. And then, and I mean, it sounds like you can have your hands in a lot and make a lot of change, just by having the community feedback, which
Mhm.
a lot of people in public works don't want community feedback. You don't want to hear from too many people because that means there's always a problem, but it allows you to go out, get some data, and then make a change from there, which I think is
Mhm.
pretty cool. I think it's
Yep.
valuable.
Yep, I
Um,
agree.
So what would you like? Let's say you're commissioned to put up a billboard, and this billboard is going to be in the most trafficked area of Sandy.
Mhm.
What ask of your community in regards to transportation would you put on this billboard?
What message would I put on the billboard, you're saying?
Yep, you're asking the community for something or asking them of something.
Um, yeah, just I mean the same thing we already talked about. It's their feedback about signals. I would just let them know, hey, if there's an issue with the signal, call me and let me know. That would be great. Another thing that I would also put on there is the current projects that are happening in our city. Um, are we doing any studies? Here's a new roadway that we're building or we're realigning, or here's a canal box we're building or a new bridge. Um, and then I would just share with them the traffic impacts that's going to have to them. Because there is a cost. If I close a road, that does have a cost to the general public and those who are traveling and using that roadway. So I would want to reduce that impact for them the most, as much as I can, by forewarning them or giving them detour routes and good work zone signage.
What would you say has been the most effective way to get the word out? I mean, I, I think everybody's experienced this where something's happening on your street and you're like, what the heck is going on? And then you go to a website or something and you find it, but like you never got a text message or email for that word. So what's been, I guess, your best practice for getting the word out just to kind of set those expectations and get everybody to chill out before your phones light up?
Yeah, that's always the that's always a common question, the top question I get asked by a lot of people. So, getting the word out is not so much something we do in public works, as our communications department does. They have several tools that they use. Sandy's done very good at collecting residents' emails, so we do send out email blasts. We have a very active social media accounts that people go on and follow. We have our city website where we share information on there as well. If it's, for example, I put in a new four-way stop at an intersection this summer, and before I put up that stop sign, we put in a VMS sign. It's a variable message sign. It's those signs that you can get in and program to say whatever message you want. We put that up several days before that new stop sign was implemented so that people knew that they had to stop now, because that could be a dangerous, unexpected condition that people would come across. So we have to take safety in mind for that. And then a lot of times when there's construction projects coming into neighborhoods, we require the contractors to go and put a flyer on every single door. Social media and computers don't speak to everybody. Sometimes it just takes an in-person conversation and a flyer or mail message.
Totally, totally. Speaking of like social media and being able to reach everybody, where do you think where do you think the future of transportation engineering is going? Like 100 years from now, let's say we fast forward, where do you see the person sitting in your seat, doing your job?
Mhm.
What are they dealing like? What are they purchasing? What are they like? What problems are they solving? Where do you see the future of your whole industry going?
Yeah, so I think we'll always have roads, we'll always have intersections and signals. However, there are limitations to that. You can only widen a roadway so much. When you add an additional lane onto a roadway, you're not, I mean, if you go from one lane to two lanes on a roadway, you're not automatically doubling the capacity of that roadway. Each lane that you add adds a lesser and lesser degree of capacity to that roadway. And so there's only so much you can do to add on and to help. And then the more you add to those roads that cross paths to an intersection, that adds additional delay. So several things that our industry is looking at right now. One of them is automated vehicles. There are 5 levels of automated vehicles. One to, the vehicles we had 20 years ago, and then level 5 being, somebody could sleep it while their car drives them to work. We're not all the way up to level 5 yet. We're at about a level 2 or 3. So in 100 years from now, I do anticipate that all vehicles will be automated um, near or at that level 5. And I think that'll help quite a bit with traffic congestion and efficiency. Another technology that has been around for quite a while, but it just hasn't fully stuck yet, is automated traffic signals. So in an area like Sandy and Salt Lake, we can predict the traffic volumes. We know when the peak rush hours are. We know which direction they are. The traffic volumes on the roadways stay the same pretty much every day. And because of that, we can do an excellent job at timing our traffic signals to help with that flow of the road. So we would give more green time to that heavier movement. However, when you get into areas such as Park City in Utah, they are a tourist town. They have more visitors at any given time there than they have residents. There's always events and things going on all times of the year, all through the summer, art festivals, other types of festivals. In the winter, it's a big ski attraction. And so in Park City, they don't have as well of predictable traffic volumes as we do in the Salt Lake area. And so that's more of an applicable city where automated traffic lights would work a little bit better. And what those do is they watch traffic, and they almost have their own brain where they can adjust the timing based on the traffic flows by themselves. So I wouldn't have to go in there and automatically adjust it myself. The signal would automatically say, oh, I see there's more vehicles coming this way. I'm going to change my timing automatically and give more green time to these vehicles.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's next level stuff. All right, let's say I am coming to Sandy and I text you ahead of time. I say, hey, Brittany, where can I go in Sandy to get the best burger? Where are you going to send me?
Well, that would be a hard question for you to ask, because there are a lot of great restaurants here in Sandy. Corey Bend is a popular spot with several options. At the north end of our city, there's a small theater with higher end restaurants and shops. There's a variety of options around the mall next to 106 South Interchange. Just north of the mall is our downtown area. And Utah, Sandy is considered the second downtown. So of course, Salt Lake is our state capital, but Sandy is considered the second downtown. So our downtown area is called the Cairns. And we have that master plan right now to bring in multifamily housing, transit access, retail, a hotel, office space and commercial space. And we have a lot going on right now in our downtown area with both developments in the works right now for that area, and also planning. And so that's going to be a great place where somebody can come down and visit, maybe do some shopping, get a burger, and then maybe ride transit up to the mouth of Little Cottonwood Canyon, which is a very, very popular spot in the Western United States for skiing. Another place that we have is at the south end of the city, near 110th South, Automall Drive area at State Street. Of particular note is a building that was an old schoolhouse, a historic building, and that was just recently converted into a hamburger and shake and restaurant. So there's so many options. It really just depends on what you're in the mood for.
Totally. I love it. I love it. All right. I always like to offer a space for you to thank mentors that you had along your journey, and then also offer a word of inspiration and motivation to your fellow transportation engineers out there.
Perfect. So when I first started into engineering school, I didn't fully understand all of what engineering was or what it entailed. Like I said at the beginning of the call, I've always been interested in the math and science fields. So I did have some people, they're probably in their 60s or 70s and retired now, but they would say to me, you should look at engineering. And I'd be like, yeah, whatever that is, I don't know. But it still stuck with me. And it really just helped me, encourage me to get through school and to continue to study that. So I just really appreciated the people that recognized my skill set and my potential, and was supportive and encouraging that way. As far as right now in the working world and the places I've worked at, I really appreciate the people who hear me out and listen to me in meetings. I've been in places where I would say something and I was either dismissed or talked over. And I've also worked in places where I said something and they would say, oh, that's a great idea, let's do it. and then the idea is implemented and then it's successful, and that just really builds a lot of credit. And so I really appreciate the people who provide that for me and are just willing to listen, which I think anybody would appreciate. And then a word of motivation for everyone. I would say there's so much to know and so much to learn about engineering. And honestly, it's a lifetime of learning. I don't think anybody would ever get to a point where they say, oh, I'm done learning. There's no more to know about engineering. I know it all, because that's just not true. So always make it a life endeavor to keep learning. And there's going to be hard times, either culturally or difficulty in what you're learning, and just push through it and stick with it. And the more you do that, the more joy and happiness you'll find, and in your successes. And I appreciate that you work so hard to achieve your potential.
Sure, sure. Thanks for that. How often do you get to play the violin nowadays?
Yeah. Not at all.
I bet with this, it sounds like you got a pretty strenuous schedule. So it's
Yeah.
funny that the things that we're passionate about kind of go by the wayside the more advanced we get in our career. So it's unfortunate, but
Yeah.
hopefully I see you on stage playing your violin, having a good time looking at traffic lights and stuff. But other than that, thank you for hopping on the show. Thank you for sharing your wealth of information and knowledge with us. To all the listeners out there, make sure you share this with somebody who you think needs to hear it. Brittany, before we get out of here, any final words?
Just thanks for having me on here. This is a great opportunity. I enjoyed speaking with you, and good luck to you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, Brittany, thanks for hopping on once again. This has been the Public Works Podcast, and thank you for listening.